you so much, Dr. Tripathi, Honorable Vice Chancellor Subharti University, the guest speakers, Professor Dekshit and Professor Virpal Singh ji, Professor C.P. Singh ji, the organizers of this national webinar. A very good morning to all of you. And I must congratulate the organizers for choosing such a wonderful, topic and taking this wonderful initiative at this time. Now, previous speakers have already unpacked the policy, National Education Policy 2020. But I would like to throw some light on those areas which are related to the legal education, and at the same time some of those areas of the NEP 2020 which are not been discussed here at length. So legally speaking, every human being has a human right to education in the world, and it has been declared under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And when we talk about the India, then you see that by 86th amendment to the Constitution, 2002, this right to education is elevated as a fundamental right and placed in part third of the Constitution under Article 21A. This right was earlier interpreted by the judiciary as a part of right to life under Article 21 as a fundamental right, be it Mohini Jain case or Unni Krishnan case. So right to education was always there. So far as the lawmaking is concerned, we know that education was in the state list earlier. That is, the law on education is to be made by the state assemblies. But by 42nd Amendment to the Constitution 1976, this has been inserted, this education item has been inserted in the third list, that is known as the concurrent list, and both state and center can enact the law. So, considering the importance of education and the mandate also, which is there in Article 21A, which is a fundamental right, Right to Education Act 2009 was enacted because we know that education is a tool and that helps the person to achieve the success, and this also helps to build the future of the person and the country as such. So in order to ensure the nation building, the community development, education is very necessary for the public good. And society always thrives on the educational sectors development and growth, and that is what we see in the National Education Policy of 2020, which is a very prominent document in consideration of the same when deciding the country's future. So coming to NEP, we see that, or we can see that certain reforms which were proposed in the existing system, those are the part of this NEP. And as told by the previous speakers also, we see that this NEP draft was of 484 pages long. And the final outcome or the final document which we are talking about is just 66 pages. So how much work has been done to bring it to this and to include each and everything that we find in this National Education Policy of 2020, which is divided in 4 parts and 27 chapters. Now, part 1 deals with the school education. We are not concerned with in the legal education as such, though the UP government, as has been told, is bringing that in the subjects other than law, that is in the general art subjects. So part 1 deals with the school education. Part 2 discusses about the higher education. Part 3, which is relevant for the purpose of legal education, it deals with the other key areas of the focus, and those areas include the professional education, because we know that legal education at the graduation level is considered to be the professional education. Then besides this professional education, adult education, technology, online and digital education. This is all the part third of this education policy. And finally, the part fourth, that is very important, because whenever we make any policy program, then implementation of that program is very important. That how it has to be implemented, how it has to be brought in the society, how it has to be materialized. So whatever provisions are there, how it has to be implemented. And part four of this policy focuses on making this policy happen as to how it has to be implemented. So NEP, which is a very, very progressive policy, but at the same time, it is ambitious also. Though it has replaced 1986 policy, and the policy focuses on flexibility and quality education. And it also emphasizes on the life skills, ethics, and the constitutional values. They are also being placed in this policy. One of the most appreciated proposal in this policy is the introduction of right to education, that up to the age of 18 years, every children will get right to education, which is there in the Act of 2009, but the age is now up to 18 years. So this is to ensure that the children are enrolled and they are attending the schools. That is why this right to education provision is always a part of this policy. Now coming to the main features of the 2020 policy, we see that we have moved from 6 year to 18 years school education. Now it has been 3 years to 18 years. So preschool is also included in the mandatory schooling by this policy. Further, we see the education structure is also reformed, because it is talking about the restructuring. It has been reformed. So from 10 plus 2 education, now we have moved, or we are moving through this policy towards 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 structure of school curriculum. And it aims to promote the multilingualism, mother tongue, local language, regional language in teaching and learning. So as again and again it is being repeated, and we all know, being student of law, that the constitution under 8th schedule, there are 22 languages, and India is a country which is diverse in nature and language, and many other diversities are there. So multilingualism is being promoted by this policy. Until the grade 5th, medium of instruction is to be the mother tongue. And the students, they will overcome the language barrier in learning, because those who cannot understand the other languages, this policy promotes for that mother tongue also. Then flexibility in the choices of the subjects. This is very important, provision or proposal of this policy. And this policy has removed the barriers of streams, like I am from the art side, I am from the science side, I am from the commerce side. So these barriers of these streams, these have been removed by this policy, by giving it a flexible choice to the students to choose any subject from any stream. And the student will have the this increased flexibility in the choice of the subjects to study of his interest. And in other words, we can say that the students will be permitted to take the courses across all the disciplines, whether it is art or is science or is commerce. So this flexibility in choice of subject is the best part of this policy. Then coming to the board exams, as rightly told by Dr. Tripathi, that the students, they are in the fear of the board exam and all these things. So now this policy is saying that this would test the knowledge of the student, and it is not being dependent as earlier policies are on the rote learning. And that is the focus is on the core concept of the subject, and it is not based on the rote learning. That is to say that the student will acquire more practical knowledge with this proposal in the board exams, that is based on the knowledge and not on the rote learning. And the conceptual understanding, that has been focused in this particular policy. Now, regarding institutional restructuring and consolidation, we see that the higher education institution it will be moving towards the large multidisciplinary education and research universities. It would be coming by 2040, known as MERU, multidisciplinary education and research universities. And at the same time, one of the important proposal of this policy is also to enhance and to increase the gross enrollment ratio. Now, presently, as it is said that the enrollment ratio is 26.3. So this policy says that by 2035, the gross enrollment ratio would be increased to bring it up to 50%. We all know that the drop-off rates of the children in the school education, that is how we have to increase the enrollment of the children in the school. So this is the focus of the this policy, that how to increase the enrollment ratio. Then another important point of this policy is the multiple entries and exits in an undergraduate and graduate programs. And in that way, you see that if there will be multiple entries and multiple exits, then those exits will not be useless. The student who will be exiting early, taking admission in a 4-year program or 3-year program, if he wants to come back or to exit the program due to various reasons, medical reason may be there, economic reason may be there, or some other reasons may be there. So he will be given the certificate, diploma, degree as per his exit time. And for that, how it has to be managed, rightly told, there would be an ABC, that is Academic Bank of Credit, in digital form by storing the academic credits from different institutions, and those would be used in the final degree. So the policy in that way also provides for an extensive use of technology in teaching and learning, because we all have learned due to the pandemic the use of technology. So this has to be systematically or systematized by this policy as to how we have to use the technology. That again we see the focus is on the 21st century skills in teaching, learning and assessment, and that can be done through the use of technology. So a student would experience a newer level of teaching with online courses, blended learning and digital repositories also. And we see that through this, the logical decision making and innovative for creative or critical thinking is to be encouraged. This is the proposal in the policy. The ODL, the Online Distance Learning 2020 regulation of UGC, which speaks that 40% courses may be taken from the Swayam or the UG and PG Pathshala and other online modes. So the use of technology is very important, and this is the focus of the this NEP, that the policy provides for the extensive use of the technology. Then section 18 or this of this policy, that chapters, as I told you, there are 27 chapters. So in that chapter, that speaks about the transforming the regulatory system of education. And to address the issue of the higher education, the policy has framed 4 independent bodies, rightly told by Professor Veerpal Singh ji, under this umbrella of Higher Education Commission of India. And this is provided that there should be a light but tight policy, that is regulation by a single regulator for higher education. And there would be a National Higher Education Regulatory Council, a single council. But you see that medical and legal education are not the part of this regulatory council, because autonomy has been conferred to legal and medical education by this NEP. Then another body which will be working under this umbrella of Higher Education Commission of India, that is National Accreditation Council. So previously we were having NAC, now it is a NAC. Higher Education Grants Council and General Education Council. So the main focus would be of this General Education Council in teaching and learning, because it is working on the outcome based as to what the students are learning and what is the outcome of that. This would be the main focus of this General Education Council. And now coming directly to the legal education in India, we know that legal education in India is primarily imparted by three kinds of institutions: the central and state universities, law schools, departments, and constituent colleges, one. The second type of the legal education which we are having in country, that is national law universities. And the third type of the legal education that is coming is from the private universities and private colleges. So they offer either a 3-year law program or a 5-year integrated law program. Then 1-year LLM and 2-year LLM, MPhil, PhD, and LLD program. So in law, in legal education, presently we are having the graduation programs, that is 3 years and 5 years, PG program, that is 1 year and 2 years. MPhil was also being run in some of the universities, and besides that, PhD in law and LLD programs. These are the programs which these universities are covering. Now, prior to NEP 2020, the UG law was controlled by Bar Council of India, and PG, MPhil, and research in law was controlled by the University Grants Commission. So the question is, how this policy, which excludes the legal and medical education from its purview, would be beneficiary for legal education, in terms of the fact that the professional education is the part and parcel of overall higher education system. And secondly, whether the regulatory body for legal education, that is Bar Council of India, which was looking after only for undergraduate legal education, that is 3-year and 5-year LLB program, would also control PG and research programs in law, as MPhil program is discontinued by the NEP 2020. And whether this multicolored approach of offering this combined degrees will be a challenge to implement the national education policy by all these three types of the institutions for legal education, as I told you: central and state universities, national universities, and private universities and private law colleges. So for this, first we need to see what provisions are made for legal education in the NEP 2020. So part third, that is other key areas: professional education, which includes the online education and technology use, language, art, all these things. This also speaks about the legal education in the policy. As rightly told, chapter 20, part 4 of this national education policy speaks about the professional education, which includes the agricultural, healthcare, technical education, legal education. So it speaks that stand alone or the single discipline university, stand alone agricultural universities, that includes the law universities, also health science universities, technical universities, IITs, IIMs. So all these stand alone institutions in the field shall aim to become multidisciplinary institutions, and they have to offer the holistic and multidisciplinary education in an integrated manner by 2030. So this is the provision in chapter 20 of the NEP. So we are talking about that the legal education has been not the part of the national education policy, and Bar Council of India has to make the regulations for that. However, the structure and the guidelines have been given in this national education policy towards the legal education also, which speaks that all the stand-alone universities and institutions have to become multidisciplinary education in an integrated manner by 2030. And particularly, specifically 20.4 speaks about the legal education, and which says that it needs to be competitive globally. It should adopt the best practices. It should also embrace new technologies for the wider access and for timely delivery of justice, because we know that AI, which is also the part in the technology in this national education policy, So how we have to adopt the machine learning and artificial intelligence, that is all to be the part of the legal education also, so as to give the timely or the judgment or delivery of justice may be very, very timely. So this is the provision in 20.4, which speaks about the embracing or taking or using the new technologies. Further, it also says that it should focus and must be informed and illuminated with the constitutional values of justice. You all must be aware that justice is the first preambular objective in the Constitution of India, which speaks about the objective of justice, which includes the social justice, economic justice, and political justice. So the national policy says that legal education should be directed towards the national reconstruction through the instrumentation of democracy, democratic values, rule of law, and human rights. Rightly observed by Professor Manoj Dikshit ji, that we have to engrave all these socio-cultural things in our legal education, because these are the part of the national education policy, and we have to think that how we have to restructure the contents of our education, which may include all these points which are the part of the national education policy. Then further you see that national education policy says that the curricula for legal studies must also reflect the socio-cultural context, wherein the history of legal thinking, the principles of justice, and practice of jurisprudence must also be appropriately and adequately put in the contents. So, jurisprudence and the principles of justice, these are the main focused areas which are to be the part of the contents which any student who is going to take the degree in law must have learned. And this should be the part of the curricula. Then further it says that the state institutions, it's not for the central institutions, it's not for the national institution, it says about the state institutions offering law education must consider this bilingual education for the future lawyers and the judges uh, in English as well as the language of that particular state in which the institution is situated. Now, this point of NEP is a little bit, creating certain problems also for the national law universities, which are naming as national universities, but they are basically the state universities. So whether these universities will also have to follow the thing on this bilingual system or not, because the education for future lawyers and judges to be in English and in language of the state in which the institution is situated. This is the provision or proposal in the national education policy. Now the question for various central and national law universities in particular, and for other legal educational institutions in general, would be whether they have to change their admission pattern based on the All India entrance, which is also provided in the BCI Bar Council of India 2020 rules, which have been issued by the Bar Council under this National Education Policy power. So they are also, providing for the All India Common Entrance Test. So you see that, for example, a Telugu speaking student from Andhra Pradesh as his or her mother tongue got admission in Gujarat on the All India entrance merit, has to study the law degree in English as well as in Gujarati also. So it is good that by ensuring the ease of legal education at the comfort of law students, it will reform the education sector. However, we should not forget the constitutional mandate under Article 351, which is to promote and spread the Hindi language, to develop it to serve as a medium of expression and to enhance the composite culture of India. So we have to see that these 22 languages which are given in the 8th schedule of the constitution, and this policy speaks about to use all those languages, and the state has to give the instructions in that particular language of that particular state to the students, then why not Hindi is to be made compulsory? This is one of the question which is a constitutional mandate also under Article 351 of the Constitution. Second point is that in view of the globalization, which this policy also focuses, that discontinuing English at the as the primary medium of teaching and learning, it can hamper competition on global level, mostly where English is the parent or the first language. So what we are doing? Are we overburdening the student to learn subject in two languages, or what we are doing with this policy? This is a question, and the contents and the authorities have to think on that line also, that we are going towards globalization. We need that our education should be globally recognized, and we should be internationally recognized in that way. Whether this language or the state language or the mother tongue in teaching and learning would be appropriate or not, where English is the parent or the first language. So, one of the primary aims, as I told you, of the national education policy is to create a new system that is aligned with the aspirational goals of 21st century education, while remaining consistent with the India's tradition and value system. This is the part of the NEP. So, 2020 NEP says to include these values in the curriculum while recognizing the long-term objectives of the educational, legal education particularly. And the legal profession, we know, is considered to be one of the most prestigious professions of all the professions. It is the responsibility of the legal education to maintain all these things, which is the part of the national education policy. So, to fulfill that responsibility, it is important that ethical and constitutional values should be the integral part of the legal education. But as I told you that in 2021, this BCI has come out with the notification of Bar Council of India postgraduate doctoral, executive, vocational, clinical and other continuing education rules, which have been notified on 2nd January 2021. So you see that the new education policy 2020, that has carved out the legal education, as I told you, from the umbrella of the apex body of institution, Higher Education Commission of India, with its regulatory arm, and the National Higher Education Regulatory Council, and the entire realm of legal education is now to be regulated by the Bar Council of India. So, Bar Council of India under Rule 12, which is transitory provision, it provides that until the Curriculum Development Committee (CDC) of the Legal Education Committee of the Bar Council of India otherwise decides, the four base core compulsory subjects for the students would be law and social transformation, theories of law and justice, research methodologies, design of blueprint of curriculum, and quantitative analysis for LLM program. The NEP is focusing on the constitutional values to be an integral part of the legal education, whereas the BCI has not given Constitution of India as a base core course compulsory for the PG students. As per NEP, the added importance is given to practical assignments and skill development and learning with critical thinking along with the discovery, discussion, and analysis by BCI. You see, they have made this provision in paralegal or court management courses with the help of the National Legal Service Authorities and the State Legal Service Authorities and Bar Council of India Trust to conduct the paralegal services, which may include the land survey, notarization, registration of all other judicial work of the courts and lawyers, etc., and technology and court management courses of the suitable duration as a part of the skill development, both online and offline mode, to facilitate this paralegal work and the court management. However, it is also very apt and germane to point out here that the paralegal and court management as a skill basically required for the advocates. And instead of PG law courses, this provision would be better for the undergraduate law courses. but they have made it in the PG courses. So the court management and paralegal services, this is basically for the UG student, and BCI is suggesting this or recommending this for the PG students. For skill development in law students at UG level, BCI must look beyond the moot courts and clinical education. The language lab for writing skills, drafting the contracts, the notices, pleadings, judgments, books, opinions, reviews, these can be there to polish the students' their drafting skills. So, skill development for training in legal aid, arbitration, and mediation, the client counseling, and research, that must be focused. And for PG law students, the focus must be, or as per the NAPVC, it should be towards critical thinking along with the discovery, discussion, analysis, and content creation. So they should be polished in legislative drafting, also by drafting the model law as the part of their research work. So there must be a distinction between the UG and PG level of skill development, because what the student would be learning at UG level, then that has to be polished at the PG level, and something new that has to be learned by the student at PG level. So in that way, you see the BCI rules which have been there are not, following what is there in the NEP. Then the establishment of a national assessment center, that is the provision in the NEP, and that is known as the PARAK. PARAK, that is performance assessment review and analysis of knowledge for holistic development. So, as a standard setting body, PARAK indicates that the government is keen to monitor the education system. So, in 2001, you see the University Grants Commission appointed an expert committee which submitted a very, very comprehensive report. And the recommendations of the National Knowledge Commission on the quality of legal education and research in the country for overhauling the system towards achieving the academic and professional excellence, UGC implemented 1 year LLM degree course in India from the academic session to 2013-2014. Now, the NEP 2020 ensures the inclusion of global education outreach in the education sector, which is a very, very positive step towards India's international recognition. At the same time, the NEP is also proposing that after 4 years UG, there would be a 1 year PG. I told you that in law there is 3 year UG and 5 year UG, and after that, the student who has completed 5 year PG, UG has to again go for the 2 year PG for LLM program. But here you see that BCI rules of 2020, they abolished 1 year LLM program, which is being run across the world. Across the world, I am talking about. In all the national universities in India, all the private universities and colleges and various state and central universities, 1 year LLM program is being run. So the BCI rules have abolished this, though it is pending before the court of law. The decision is yet to come. And however, they have allowed for this year to continue 1 year LLM. So, what would be the fate of this 1 year LLM as per BCI rules, which is not in conformity with the national education policy, which says that after 4 year UG program, there would be 1 year PG program. And further, the BCI rule says that anyone who has obtained a 1 year LLM degree from any foreign university, that is not equivalent to Indian LLM degree. Okay, so once the NEP is saying about the globalization and global education towards the international recognition, the student who has taken the LLM degree from some foreign university, that degree would not be considered equivalent degree as the LLM degree from the Indian universities, and NEP is not being again confirmed by BCI in that way. So BCI says that the 1 year LLM degree obtained after an equivalent LLB degree from any highly accredited foreign university may entitle the person concerned to be appointed. And appointed in which category? To be appointed only as a visiting professor in an Indian university, not as a regular professor. for at least 1 year, so that it may be considered that 1 year LLM with 1 year teaching experience as a visiting faculty, that may be considered then equivalent. So it seems that the Parent Act, that is National Education Policy, is saying something different, and BCI is going towards beyond the Parent Act while making the rules for legal education. Legal education needs to be competitive globally, embracing novel practices and espousing new technologies for extensive access and timely delivery of justice. This is what NEP says about, which is missing in the BCI rules. And then another point of consideration in legal education is to provide for multiple entry and exit options. The BCI rule is silent on that. And we see that presently, as per the Bar Council of India rules, 2008 education rules, practicing the legal profession, a law degree is a must. And those who exit after 1 year or 2 years, either after getting a certificate or the diploma as per NEP, will find no career options suitable for their qualification. So NAP, which has coined this idea of under its chapter 11.9, that is 4 year multidisciplinary bachelor's program. Degree in law presently, as I told, is either 3 year or 5 years. So BCI has to come with 4 year bachelor degree with research, and also to amend the regulation to provide for multi-entry and multi-exit in this program. The problem will be in 3 years, all the papers taught are law papers, while in 5 years, initial 2 years, mostly non-law papers are being taught. So further, you see that most of the law papers are connected and related with other papers. Like if you are teaching IPC, you may also take reference of CRPC and evidence law. Then again, further constitutional law, being supreme law of the land, need to be discussed in almost in every paper. So giving exit options may result into reducing the very purpose and objective of the program of law. So here the restructuring of the subjects taught will have to be worked upon, which may facilitate multiple exit options and with certificate, diploma, and degree as per the NAP. And every year, I think so that every year there would be fresh admission for the odd semesters. Uh, Further, as I told you that NAP under its light but tight provision, that is regulation by a single regulator for higher education, provides for Higher Education Grants Council to function under the aegis of the Higher Education Commission of India. So it has to be seen whether the legal education will be governed by HEGC, that is Higher Education Council, Grant Council, or not. If not, then law schools and universities may lose out on funding and grants from the government. Regarding stand-alone universities, as NEP says that these universities have to be converted to the multidisciplinary institutions. So presently, we know that all the national law universities and the private law universities and the colleges which are said to be highly specialized and confined to legal education only. They have developed their infrastructure and they have resources according to their requirement as the single or the standalone university or specialized university. They will be facing a major problem in the implementation of this specific norm, that who will grant the or fund these standalone universities, national law universities, etc. Though we see that many national law universities are sustaining themselves on their own earnings and self-financed models without the regular grant from the government. But maybe in future, if these type of the things would be there, that is multidisciplinary university has to come out, then the burden may be on the students also by increasing their tuition fees and all these things. So we have to see that how the state governments would support financially to these stand-alone universities to bring them or to make them the Meru or the multidisciplinary education and research universities. Then you see the legal profession, if considered to be one of the most prestigious profession, as I told you, and this is the responsibility of legal education itself to maintain the same. The 2020 NEP to include these values in the curriculum while recognizing the long-term objectives of legal education. And you see the Bar Council of India, which got the power for making the rules for legal education under this NEP. Besides UG, the PG and research also, rules are to be made by the Bar Council of India. The BCI will have to play a key role in enhancing the standards of legal education in conformity with NEP. When I was going through the NEP, I have seen in chapter 15.2, there was a mention of one of the recommendation of Justice J.S. Verma Commission of 2012. That commission was constituted by the Supreme Court to see the teacher education institutions (TEIs) working, and according to the commission report, which is mentioned in this policy, a majority of stand-alone TEIs, teacher education institutions, over 10,000 in number, are not even attempting serious teacher education, but are essentially selling degrees for a price. So we are also witnessing the mushrooming of private law colleges, and the approval by the BCI without giving any, without inspecting the particular school college for giving the approval for running the courses. So this TEI example is there. So we are having many law colleges where the degrees are just being sold at a particular price. So in order to make this NEP rules possible, to make the standards of legal education possible, it is also very important for the BCI to play very important role, so that the standard of the legal education may be enhanced, and they may be in conformity with the national education policy. This is very important, and we have to see that the law schools, the departments, the universities should not be only the institutions of degree selling, rather quality education with inclusiveness. And with these words, I thank the organizers for selecting a topic which is very relevant and timely in view of the BCI rules 2020, in view of the NEP, and also in view of the use of maximum technology during this pandemic, the online offline blend classes. So we have to learn many things of this NEP as to how it has to be implemented, because making it happen is the focused area of NEP, because the other things are there, which how it has to be implemented, that is very important. So with these words, I thank the organizers once again. Thank you very much.